This is ABC News legal analyst Royal Oakes welcoming you to Hinshaw Culbertson's Insurance Law Program, where we discuss insurance and reinsurance issues of interest to industry professionals. Here's your host, the co-chair of Hinshaw's Global Insurance Services Practice Group, Scott Seaman.
On this episode, we are joined by Hilary Harmsworth. She's the Divisional Director at Howden Insurance Brokers, and also by Sam Vardy, who's the Executive Director, Legal, Technical, and Claims at Howden Insurance Brokers. We will be introducing a brand new bad faith survey for our clients. It was put together by Howden and Hinshaw, or Hinshaw and Howden, whichever you prefer, along with our friends at RPC. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for making your premier appearance here on Hinshaw Insurance Law. Hilary, let's start out with you and ask you just to tell us a little bit about yourself and also about Howden.
Okay, so starting with Howden. So Howden is one of the largest insurance groups in the world, serving many corporates and SMEs and multinationals. It's got operations in over 50 countries, and with its Howden One network actually offers solutions in over 100 territories. So we're about 35 billion of premium under management, and I've got 16,000 colleagues, and it's growing by the day. So, it's a really, I think when I joined 4 years ago, there was about 4,000 colleagues, and now we're at 16,000. So that tells you the growth in the business, I guess. We are 32% employee owned, which we're very proud of, and I think it makes a difference to what we offer to clients and the way in which we do things. We're all invested in making it work and doing the best for our clients. So the business is built around specialisms, and I sit within the financial lines group specialism, and within that specialism alone, there's about 500 people in London alone, actually. And within that particular specialism, I lead the insurance for insurance companies and MGAs practice. So all my team does every day is financial lines. So that's the E&O, D&O, crime, cyber, PTL, EPL for insurance businesses themselves. So I've been doing it for sort of specialising in this area for almost 20 years now, working with the likes of Swiss Re's, Munich Re's, Allianz's through to startup Lloyd's syndicates, and have acted for 9 out of the top 10 Lloyd's syndicates. So lots of years experience. So I'm really happy to be on today and to join you, Scott.
Well, we're happy to have you, and it's just amazing that you obviously began your career when you were 3 or 4 years old. And to be able to be on a first name basis with 16,000 colleagues is no small task. And you have one of those great colleagues with you, Sam. And Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role at Howden and how the hell you got mixed up with a guy like me?
Thanks, Scott, and thanks for inviting us on today. So my background is as a private practice lawyer, and so I was working on the policyholder side of things for quite some time, working on difficult claims and wording points. And then about 8 years ago, I moved over to the broker side to put that into practice for clients at the broker level. So I help Hilary on the insurance company side. So we deal with a lot of bad faith claims, and we're always looking for experts to help us to develop our knowledge and help our clients. Unfortunately, none were available for this project, Scott. So we set up my own open goal there for that one. No, of course, I'm joking, Scott. We were great. It's great to be involved with you and to have your years of experience and knowledge to help develop the bad faith practice and help our clients navigate their way through it.
Well, again, it's I think this partnership accrues to all of our clients' benefits. And the three of us recorded an episode of Howden's podcast, which is called Fortune Favors the Brave. And you guys misspell favors, but other than that, it is a great podcast. You ask all your guests on your podcast to give an example of when they exhibited bravery. My example was, of course, very lame, But I did think it would be good to sort of turn the table on both of you and ask an example, a time when you guys exhibited bravery. And let's start with Sam on this one.
Thanks, Scott. Well, as you know, I'm as meek as a kitten, so I think bravery and me don't really go in the same sentence. But one thing I was doing this weekend, it was St. Patrick's Day, which I know you guys over the pond celebrate quite heavily as well. And my daughter is an Irish dancer, so my bravery this weekend was driving her and several of her dance school partners around the pubs of central and southeast London so they could perform to an increasingly raucous Irish crowd. So having a few children, age ranges 8 to 15 in my car, trying to parallel park in central London on a Sunday afternoon, and escaping these pubs, I think that felt like a pretty brave thing to do. But we made it through, made it back home last night.
And I would say also, and here in Chicago, we actually dye our river green, but just driving in London for me is an act of bravery because I'm not used to driving what I would say is the wrong way. And I'm just wondering, Sam, if you were, when you were watching people getting a little bit rowdy, having a little bit to drink, if one of those people, Miss Hillary, was you.
Of course not, Scott. I don't know what you're saying. It could easily have been, but actually I was watching my daughter's dance show. So doing something similar, Sam, to you. Yeah, another
And so
dance
if there is truly someone who is brave on this episode, it would be you.
I feel like every day I have to be brave, but I think that's the world, isn't it, that we live in. So shall I tell you a story about when I was brave, Scott? Yeah. So I think I was trying to think of something that would be that was good enough actually to tell a story about. But the thing that sprang to mind was my honeymoon in South Africa. So quite a number of years ago now, probably 18 years ago. My husband always wanted to dive with great white sharks. And so going to South Africa, you can do it there. And so we thought, while we're on honeymoon, why doesn't he do that? And I'll go along and watch him. So first 2 mornings, we got woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning to be told basically the sea was too rough to go out. So we couldn't go those first 2 days. But then on the 3rd day, we managed to get out to sea. We got on this very small white fishing boat. It was about 40 feet long, smaller than the boat that actually the shark in the Jaws film managed to sink. So I wasn't looking forward to it too much. So the boat was swaying aggressively side to side as the water was so rough. But we got on, we persevered, and off we went out to sea. Stopped in the middle of the sea. And the boat's still rocking side to side. The guys put the bait in the water and the sharks come circling around the boat. My husband got all his gear on to go into the water in the cage. There's no way I was actually going to go in, but I did commit to watching. So at the same time as he was getting in the cage, they told me that I had to go upstairs onto this small deck, and which would have been fine. But the only problem was that the ladder to get there was over the side of the boat. And so the boat was swaying like this, and they'd said to me, "Off you go, no, nothing on me, just off you go, up you go." And one wrong step, I would have been their breakfast for sure. So, so I did go up the ladder. I was absolutely terrified. I think I was still shaking 3 days later, but I made it. So
did you notice like the eyes of the sharks looking up and maybe?
Yeah, oh, it was terrifying. Yeah.
Well, I guess your experience in dealing with lawyers probably helped you somewhat.
Yeah.
For that. So Howden and Hinshaw put together a 50-state survey on U.S. insurance bad faith law. I would say, Hillary, being safe and secure on the other side of the pond, why are your European clients interested in U.S. bad faith law, and how does it impact?
Yeah, I think, similar to US businesses, many of our European clients are actually exposed to bad faith in exactly the same way. So, whilst some of them are present in the US and have subsidiaries there or offices there, but even those that aren't present, are quite often writing US risks, particularly the entities that we deal with in Lloyd's. That's one of the key areas for them is the US. So I think just very similar to the US firms, our European firms are very interested in bad faith and what's happening there as well.
And Sam, you knew going into this project a lot about US bad faith law. But could you give us an example or two of how working on this project has impacted your view or knowledge on US bad faith law and practice?
Well, it's very kind of you, Scott, to say I knew a lot about it before. I think we know a lot about the bad states in the sense of there are some bad states, but getting into the detail of the intricacies of why that is and how they differ on the law was very interesting. So pulling a lot of that out, and I think it will help clients understand what the issues really are and why they need to be concerned about states rather than just that they do need to be concerned about states. And I think it also highlights a point that we all talk about again, which is that it can go wrong very quickly. So having that knowledge and knowing how to deal with it and knowing where you need to prioritize your efforts to escalate problems and stop them becoming problems, really, it's fascinating, interesting, and it's key for businesses.
And I'm going to put the same question to you, Hilary. It can go wrong awfully quickly or awfully slowly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, very similar to Sam, and it's just very interesting as you get further and further into the detail, how different it can be state by state and what you need to know and what you need to be aware of and keeping up with the changes. I mean, it almost feels impossible to do it, but anything we can do to help our clients to understand what those changes look like, what they're meant to be doing state by state, I think, is going to be great. And, I'm really excited about this new tool that we can share with them.
So, we've kept our viewers in suspense probably long enough. Sam, would you just explain what issues the bad faith survey addresses?
Sure. So essentially, it's a way of identifying some of the top issues in bad faith, tracking those across the different states and pulling out a list of responses, which also identifies why the issue is a problem and which are the worst states. So if you're doing a particular line of business in a particular state, you can look at that state and you can see what are the issues that you really need to spot. So I think there are about 10 different issues, Scott, that you and your colleagues have covered, all of them that can play an integral part in whether a bad faith state is a good or a bad state.
Yeah, we take a look at whether or not a first-party cause of action for bad faith is recognized, whether a third-party cause of action is recognized, whether punitive damages, attorney's fees, and other types of damages are potentially recoverable in the jurisdiction. We look at other issues like whether or not an insurer can stay or dismiss the bad faith claims pending a determination that there's coverage. So some of the basic 9 issues, I guess, are what we address. And part of the beauty of the survey is it enables us over time to supplement or update the existing issues, but also fool everybody by adding a new issue or two from time to time. So Hilary, get into a little bit more of the details, if you would, on how the survey works and whether or not it's user-friendly.
Yeah, so it's a very simple tool. We'll send you a link. You then go into the tool. You're presented with a map of the US, and you can click on the states in which you're interested in. You click on those, and then up pops a very simple, straightforward table of the information that Scott you've just described there. So it's very, very simple, very user friendly. And then if you want to, you can output that into a PDF file to use elsewhere, to email, to put into Word docs, whatever you may want to do with it. So I think it's it couldn't be easier actually in terms of use of it.
Yeah, I was amazed. Your folks did a great job in making it very easy to understand and use. And you could look at the law of one state, you could pick out several, you could look at all of them. And then there's some sections that have different bits of information. One that provides a little bit of an overview of U.S. bad faith law. One that provides some, tips or practices, best practices for minimizing bad faith exposure. So it is a handy tool. It's not obscured by a bunch of citations to cases or statutes. It just sort of gets right into the answers. And
even I can understand it, Scott.
But you're a genius, so that really doesn't say much. But the fact that Sam and I can get through it, I think, it's for everybody, ranging from high acumen down to me at low acumen. So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, Sam, to turn the tables a little bit and a brief overview for our folks in the U.S. about UK law and how, in a broad sense, it may vary or differ from U.S. law in bad faith.
Yeah, sure. So UK law doesn't really have bad faith in the same way at all. And until a few years ago, there was no remedy whatsoever for an insurer denying a claim that you thought had been denied wrongfully or in bad faith. As part of the insurance law reforms, there is now a remedy for late payment of an insurance claim. The threshold of that is quite high, and the damages are based purely on the loss that you suffer. So the typical example, and this was talked about by the Law Commission when they were performing the review, was if you have a business, you require an insurance payment, and because you don't get the payment, you then become insolvent as a business. So that's the sort of loss that's envisaged will be covered under this relatively new act. So you don't get the kind of insurance policy limit busting claims where you might have a low policy limit but multi-million-pound recovery once you have a successful bad faith claim. So that's where we are. Interestingly, you talk about attorneys' fees. I suppose the one thing that we do have in this country is recovery of attorneys' fees in almost all cases. So whether there's bad faith or not, if you pursue an insurer for recovery under a policy, you take that all the way to court and you win, you would expect to be recovering your attorney fees, usually about 70% of them.
Yeah, and so the law is different, a lot more narrow. The trier of the case is different because you don't have juries in civil cases. But, I do have to say, even with that, social inflation, I think, is touching your side of the pond as well. And, juries are known these days for nuclear verdicts and thermonuclear verdicts, but really it's a lot of times nuclear rulings by courts, by judges that give rise to them. So I referenced earlier, Hilary hosted Sam and I for a couple of episodes on Howden's podcast, Fortune Favors the Brave, and we discussed insurance bad faith law in greater depth. I think it's 2 or 3 episodes of maybe roughly 20 minutes each, depending on how much of my humor they edited out. But in preparation for that, I listened to some other episodes, and the podcast is very interesting. It's well done, but it's very wide ranging. So it's something. There are episodes that appeal to lawyers, to claims professionals, to professionals of any type, businesses. One episode I listened to talked about customer service, and going into that episode, the way I would handle complaints from clients is to start screaming at them and telling them that they're fools. But I don't do that anymore after listening to that episode. But Hilary, could you just tell everybody how they can access your podcast?
Yeah, I mean, it's super easy. Just go to your usual podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whichever one you use. Search for Fortune Favors the Brave, and you'll find us there. So couldn't be easier, really, Scott.
And it's really worth the listen. By the way, how did Sam and I do? Yeah, that's about it.
You did amazing. Of course you did. You were brilliant.
I love the brilliant word. I don't get that much on this side of the pond, I can tell you. So we had several lawyers at our end working on this, and my partners Paulette Sarp and Paris Glazer helped me in spearheading things at our end. And Sam, just wanted to give you a second if you wanted to acknowledge anybody at Howden in particular that made this thing happen.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Well, you sort of trailed them already, but the data guys who were able to take out the ideas that we kind of have in our head and then put them on the screen, and it looks and works exactly how we wanted it to, they definitely deserve a big shout out. So Henry Whitaker and Henry Paramain have been an essential part of the team in putting this all together.
The two Henrys.
The two Henrys, exactly.
And the other thing, I don't know if we mentioned it, but we do color code states based on sort of their overall risk for bad faith, red being the highest, yellow being medium, and green being the least dangerous states overall. But as we point out in the survey, and it wouldn't be done by lawyers if there weren't caveats, obviously, depending on the issue and the case and the facts, there's potential danger in any state. And you could be in a state that has given rise to a lot of bad faith verdicts, and it could be a quite defensible case. Anybody who wants a copy of this survey, just email one of the three of us and we'll get it off to you. Our emails will be on the screen so you can see them. And I can't thank you, Hilary, you, Sam, enough for joining us on this and all on this episode, and also putting together this survey.
Thanks, Scott. It's been a pleasure to be involved.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in. Remember, you never know when the next episode of Hinshaw Insurance Law will drop. Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks very much.
You've been listening to Hinshaw Culbertson LLP's Insurance Law Radio. The information contained in this program is provided solely for general informational purposes and does not constitute legal advice. For information on past and upcoming Insurance Law Radio programs, visit the Insurance Services Practice Group page of www.hinshawlaw.com. This is Royal Oaks thanking you for joining us and inviting you to join us for the next episode of Insurance Law Radio.